Hey everybody, Jane here, and today I am reviewing The Secret Keeper by Kate Morton. This is the first Kate Morton I have ever read. I don't know if I will read more of her. She has a great author voice and a great style, but this book was a little bit on the long side for me. This audiobook was 20 hours, more than 20 hours, and it didn't have as much going on as I would have liked for a 20-hour long audiobook. So this is about a girl named Laurel, who when she is a teenager, she witnesses her mother kill a man, stab him. And at the time, she thinks that this man is trying to hurt her brother. There has been news of like a stalker, a picnic stalker, and she thinks that this man has, that's why he showed up, and that's why her mother killed him. But there's some funny things about that day that she starts to remember as she gets older. And in the majority of this book, Laurel is an adult. Her mother, Dorothy, is suffering from Alzheimer's and is not doing well. They know that she won't be living much longer. And Laurel decides that before her mother passes, she really wants to get to the bottom of what happened, why her mother killed the man that she killed, and if it was justified. Obviously, lots of issues there. We then spend the rest of the book kind of alternating between Laurel in the present day and Dorothy in the past. Dorothy's story takes place during the Second World War, First World War, Second. I think it was the Second World War. And Dorothy is a young woman who is dating a boy named Jimmy, and she's working as a ladies' companion and also doing some volunteer work for the veteran something. Like, I think she's making food at a cafe for veterans. Don't quote me. One of the problems with not having a paperback version of the book is I can't refer to it later. VFW, I think, is what she was working at. She was doing some volunteer hours. She meets a girl named Vivian, and they become friends. And all of this stuff is kind of related ultimately to the murder. So we have kind of a back and forth of what Laurel learns, what Dorothy's doing. I gave this book a 3 out of 5. It was way longer than it needed to be. In my opinion, I really was not connecting much with the Laurel chapters. I did like the Dorothy chapters, although, as the things were being unveiled to us, a lot of it I kind of guessed or thought might be the case, and then it was revealed, and I was like, okay. So it was fine. I liked it. It wasn't anything I would go crazy about. I have heard this is like the 13th tale, so if you enjoy the 13th tale, you might very well like this. It is good. It just was really long, and I thought longer than it needed to be for the story it was telling. Because literally, you don't have much going on in the present day other than Laurel kind of exploring her relationship with her mother and her brother, who obviously was a child at the time, a very small child who she believed her mother was saving by killing this man. So I would have almost liked it better, I think, if we'd have spent most of the book with Dorothy and her in her timeline, because her story was a little bit more important, and honestly, it kind of dragged on a little bit. So the twist at the end, it was fine. It was kind of predictable. It was a fine book. The narrator was fine. Everything was fine. There was some memorable characters, but there was just a lot that didn't quite work as well as I would have liked it to work for me. So I think I'm going to get into some spoilers and explain a little more in depth of what didn't work. So if you don't want to hear spoilers, I will just see you next time. But I think we're going to get into some spoilers with this, including like what the big twist is in 3, 2, 1. Okay, so I had some issues with the spoilers or the big twist because I felt like there were times that I knew that that's what the twist was, but then something would happen and I'd be like, well, that would be kind of weird if that happened, and that was the twist. And it's hard because I can't, since I listened to it on audiobook, I can't go back and make sure that what I remember is correct. But there were some instances where I thought, huh, that doesn't make a lot of sense twist-wise because of this, or this that happened in the story. Now, again, had I read the paperback, it might be different, and maybe I'm making this stuff up after having read it, but the twist is that Dorothy is not Dorothy. And that actually I thought about pretty early, because Dorothy, the real Dorothy's kind of a jerk. She is absolutely interested in her own stuff and self-absorbed and just, she's got some apparently mental health problems that wasn't ever as explored as I would have liked them to be. I didn't love her as a character, and like right off the bat, you can tell that she is nothing like the mother that Laurel has described up to this point. However, one of the challenges is we don't really get to meet the real Dorothy, the Dorothy who has raised Laurel and is her mother, until much later in the book. And that is because she is actually Vivian, the friend. So Dorothy makes friends with Vivian, sort of. And I was kind of confused, I'll be honest, with their level of friendship, because when we're in Dorothy's chapters early on, it seems like they are friends, and yet Vivian acts like they hardly know each other at all. And we're told that maybe Dorothy has like a mental illness that makes her think that her and Vivian are besties. But at the same time, like Vivian later reveals to us like she had to lie about not knowing Dorothy because of her husband who didn't like her to have friends. So I was kind of confused by some of that stuff. But we didn't really get to know as much about Vivian as I would have liked to know. And again, I think it's because of that twist at the end that Vivian is really Dorothy and Dorothy is really Vivian. Or at some point near the end of the book, the real Dorothy, the Dorothy we have been following in all of the flashbacks, is killed. And Vivian basically switches places with her. She reveals, or she makes it seem like she's the one that's killed and Dorothy's the one that escapes. And she goes off and lives her happy life away from her abusive, terrible jerk husband, which is fine. Makes sense. And I saw that twist coming because the Dorothy we're presented in the flashbacks is so different than Laurel's mother. So once we learn basically that Vivian was, quote, dead, I thought, oh, okay, I know where this is going. But there were some places in the book that I felt like it was weird if that was what was going to happen, the way they were playing things or doing things. I don't necessarily love the twist of it's not who you think it is. They switched identities. I didn't love that twist, and I could have done without it. I didn't necessarily think it was super well done in this, other than, again, I feel like the author did really good at misleading us, but I didn't necessarily like that. Like, she shows us all about Dorothy, all about Dorothy, all about Dorothy. Then once we hit the third part of the book, that's when we really start seeing things from Vivian's perspective. But I would have, if we were going to do that, I would have liked Vivian's perspective a lot sooner. instead of so far into the end of the book. Because she's the real Dorothy. She's the Dorothy that we know and that Laurel loves. So that really just didn't work for me. I think I would have liked to have Dorothy and Vivian, the real Dorothy and Vivian stories, a little bit more together. And early enough that we could see it, and to get Vivian's perspective on their relationship, because that is a little bit tricky. We learn that Dorothy just basically was hallucinating that they were besties. But it seems weird to me, some of the stuff that they say about Dorothy or do about Dorothy. Like, is she really hallucinating? Or are people misleading her? Or I don't know. I didn't love this. I just didn't love it. It wasn't bad. It was a story. It was a comprehensible story. There was character development. There was plot twists. I just didn't love it. So yeah, and just I felt like we could have gone in and had Dorothy being gone into flashbacks, like had Laurel see the murder, come back years later and maybe tell us about the murder, but that could have worked too. Like, come back, mom's got dementia, is talking to her brother about, hey, that thing that happened, and then get into a story, maybe found a diary, I don't know. And we could have gotten Dorothy's perspective on things and Vivian's perspective on things early on, alternating, so we can see their relationship, and that Dorothy thinks they have one relationship and Vivian thinks they have another relationship. And yeah, I feel like we could have shaved 10 hours off of this book easily. So I just, and maybe it's just me. Maybe such a slow burn book is just not for me. That is quite possible, because I just kind of a lot of times was like, can we just keep it moving? Keep it moving. Keep it moving. Let's do this. And it just wasn't doing it, and it wasn't entertaining enough and interesting enough for me to forgive it for not moving a little quicker. So yeah, that was my thoughts on The Secret Keeper. Have you read it? Did you love it? If this was a bit slow for me, should I continue with Katie Morton or with Kate Morton, or should I just, are all of her books kind of slow paced like this, or can you recommend one that's maybe a little quicker, a little faster, more happening, one that I might enjoy a little more? That's about it. So my social media is below if you'd like to talk to me off of YouTube. And if you haven't subscribed and would like more content, please do. Talk to you next time. Bye.